I am making a cubic deck profile, mainly because I realized I haven't messed with the deck for a few years now. And I recently found a funny card that's in the deck, which I still think is hilarious. And I want to say I got the idea from, I believe it was Dark-Armed Duelist. I think that's where I got the idea from. But I thought it was hilarious, so I built the deck, and I figured I might as well make a video out of it. Starting off with the monsters, I play 3 copies of Vijom the Cubic Seed. Vijom cannot be destroyed in battle. At the end of the damage step, if this card battles opponent's monster, you can place this card in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. Or I believe it's as a continuous spell. Yes, as a continuous spell, and if you do, you place a cubic counter on that monster, and the monsters with a cubic counter cannot attack, and their effects are negated. And then if this card is in your spell and trap zone by its effect, or if it's in your back row, treat it as a spell card, then you can special summon this card from your spell and trap zone during your main phase. The main thing I love about this card is that it's not once per turn. Then I play 1 copy of Geira Guile, the Cubic King, 1 copy of Vulcan Dragny, the Cubic King, 1 copy of Indior Doomvolt, the Cubic Emperor. Each of these monsters deal 800 points of damage when they're special summoned. None of them can be normal summoned or set, and can only be special summoned by their own effects. Whereas Geira Guile tributes 1 cubic monster, deals 800 points of damage and gains 800 attack, and it can... And then at the end of the damage step of this card battle, you can target up to 2 Vijom the Cubic Seeds in your graveyard, send this card to the graveyard, and then summon those 2 monsters. Vulcan Dragny requires sacrifice 2 cubic monsters you control. The special summon it, deals 800 damage, and then gains 1600 attack. And then at the end of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can send this card to the graveyard, special summon up to 3 Vijom the Cubic Seed in your graveyard, special summon them. And I believe it can... Okay, now I'm thinking of the other line. And then, if you do that, you can then add 1 Indiora Doomvolt from your deck to your hand, and I forgot to mention Geira Guile also lets you add Vulcan Dragny. And then Indiora Doomvolt must be special summoned by tributing 3 Vijom the Cubic Seed, 3 cubic monsters you control, inflicts 800 points of damage to your opponent, and then gains 2400 attack points. It also has the effect that if this card, I believe, leaves the field, what was it? If this card in your possession is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, or by an opponent's card either by battle or card effect, you can target up to 3 cubic monsters in your graveyard, special summon them, then add a cubic card from your deck to your hand. Which I just like these because they inflict 800 damage on summon, and then they each search as well. Although the main one you want is Indior Doomvolt. They also play 1 copy of Buster Gundil, the Cubic Behemoth. This monster can only be special summoned the same way as Indior Doomvolt. However, it gets 3 attacks on monsters and gains 3000 attack. And then has the exact same removal effect as Indior Doomvolt does, where it summons 3 cubic monsters from your grave, and then you gotta add a cubic card from your deck to your hand. Then I play 3 copies of Duza, the Meteor Cubic Vessel. Duza has the effect that when it's normal or special summon, you can send a cubic card from your deck to the graveyard. Then once per turn, during either player's turn, if a monster was sent to the graveyard this turn, while this card is face up on the field, you can make this card gain attack, or gain 200 attack for each monster with a different name in your graveyard until the end of the turn. The main reason you use this is just so you can foolish a cubic card. Then I play 3 copies of the deck's boss monster, which is Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. Crimson Nova cannot be normal on our set and must be a special summon from your hand by revealing 3 other cubic cards in your hand with different names. And it cannot be special summoned by other ways. It's unaffected by other monster effects whose original attack is 3000 or less. And then when this attack Excuse me. When this attacking card destroys a monster by battle, you can activate this effect so it can make a second attack. And then during the end phase, mandatory effect, both players take 3,000 points of damage. Which, the funny card in this deck actually relates to Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. Which, as long as I'm remembering correctly, will be the last spell that is gone over. Like I said, though, this is the main boss monster of the deck, as although I kind of personally prefer its secondary boss monster, but this one's still just as good. The main thing that scares me of this deck is that it does technically lose to Magic Cylinder, which scares me. Then I play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This is just here because it's a really good hand trap. For these spells, 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. This just lets you send one of the cubic spells to the graveyard so you can use this grave effect. Then I play 3 copies of Pot Extravagance. Your extra deck does not matter, so this is just a free draw 2. However, you cannot search for the rest of the turn. Or, what was it, search, or... My bad, you cannot draw cards for the rest of the turn. I remembered that something sounded wrong when I said that out loud. Then I play 3 copies of Cubic Dharma. Cubic Dharma makes so that you take no battle damage from attacks involving your cubic monsters. And then you can also use each of its effects once per turn during your main phase, where you can send a cubic card from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, draw a card. And then you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 cubic monster in your graveyard and return it, add it to your hand. Which, this is one of the cards you will send, but only if you need to, or you're out of your 3 copies of Cubic Karma. Cubic Karma makes as the effect that when this card's activated, you can target a cubic monster you control, except for Vijam. Send any number of Vijam the Cubic Seed from your hand and or deck to the graveyard to increase that monster's attack by 800. So if you target Indior Doomvolt and you somehow have 3 Vijams in your deck or hand, then you can send all 3 of them to the grave to increase Indior Doomvolt's attack by 2,400. But the main reason you play this card is for its grave effect, where you can banish it to then add a cubic monster from your deck to your hand. The main thing I like about this card is that there's not a once per turn anywhere, so if you normal summon Duza and then activate Foolish Burial Goods, you can send 2 of these and then get 2 searches. Then I play 3 copies of my personal favorite spell in the deck, which is Cubic Wave. This lets you target 1 cubic monster you control and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. The attack of your monster is doubled, while the attack of the opposing monster is halved. And then while this card's in the graveyard, you can banish it from your graveyard. Then target any number of cubic monsters in your graveyard. Let's banish this card. Okay, you banish it and any number of cubic monsters in your graveyard. Target monsters your opponent controls. For each cubic monster you banished, put a cubic counter on that monster. Then cubic counters make it so that the monster's effects are negated, and they cannot attack. Then the funny card in the deck that I like to use is 3 copies of Curse Reflection Doll. Curse Reflection Doll makes so that if you can activate it when you would take damage from a monster effect, this just makes so your opponent takes the damage you would take. So it makes the Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord's effect of both players take 3,000 to your opponent takes 6,000 damage, which I just think is hilarious. And then moving on to the traps, I play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, again just because it's a really good negation card. And I also play 3 copies of Unification of the Cubic Lords. This is the fusion spell of the deck that also has a grave effect, where you can fusion summon a cubic monster from your extra deck by using monsters from your hand or field as material, and then if a face-up cubic monster is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, this is the grave effect. Then you can banish this card from your graveyard, then special summon a level 4 lower cubic monster from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning condition. If you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects that turn. And usually what you would summon off of this is Duza the Meteor Cubic Vessel, so that you can dump another cubic spell or trap. But that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. Again, since the extra deck doesn't really matter, I haven't really built an extra deck other than 3 copies of Crimson Nova Trinity, the Dark Cubicle Lord. The extra deck for this deck can honestly be anything you like, so it can be 3 of these and then like 12 extra deck monsters that had grave effects, just in case you have to send from your extra deck to the graveyard. The extra deck can, so because the extra deck can be anything you like, it can also just be 12 generically useful Link monsters. But Crimson Nova Trinity has the effect that even though it requires 3 copies of Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubicle Lord, which is very easy to acquire in this deck, it has the effect that it must be fusion summoned with the above materials and cannot be special summoned by other ways. When this card declares an attack, you just have your opponent's life points, which I love, which means if it attacks directly, you just auto-win. And then when this card destroys a monster by battle, you can activate its effect, so they can make a second attack during each battle phase. And then if you take effect damage, you inflict an equal amount of effect damage on your opponent. So, say your opponent activates Ceasefire, and you end up taking like, let's see, I believe it's 800 per effect monster, and you end up taking like 3,000. Your opponent also takes 3,000. And the other thing with this card that I did not mention is that it cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Which, I actually love this card because I actually won a few games against my brother with it because he just was not prepared for it. And, other cards I thought about using in the deck are copies of Summoner Monk, so you can discard Cubic Karma to then be able to summon Duza and then dump another Karma. And then you can have a rank 4. But I honestly didn't think of cards I could take out that would affect things. But like I said though, the extra deck, the remaining 12 cards in the extra can be whatever you like. If you toss in Summoner Monks, then you can use rank 4 engines, like, if you toss in Summoner Monk as a rank 4 engine, then you can also use cards like Baguska or Galaga Cowboy for more effect damage. But that is it for my Cubic deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any ideas of decks I'd like to see be made in the future, or decks I'd like to see face each other, such as Cubic versus Blue Eyes, feel free to comment down below, and thanks for watching.